Hey everybody, welcome to Master of Spin with John Williams. We are back today with another episode, and today's episode is titled Live Music, the Cure for Whatever Ails You. And I know a lot of my friends out there are music fans and have been to concerts and understand why it is such a wonderful thing to experience a great live show. In my musical life, I've seen well over 500 shows. I've seen them in bars, in small clubs, in large clubs, in fields, in parks, in arenas, in stadiums. I've seen them across the Atlantic. I've seen them across the Pacific. I've seen them in venues all around the United States because as a lover of music, I have constantly searching out live music wherever I can get it. So today I'm just going to talk about some live music. I'm going to do something called Music Mondays. I did have some technical difficulties yesterday, so I'm actually dropping this on Tuesday. There's no real rhyme or reason or direction I'm taking. I'm just going to start grabbing some of my stuff and sharing with you some of the great concerts that I've been to over the years. So I'm just going to start here. I've got just a list of some stuff here. I've got a bunch of ticket stubs and things like that. So I'm going to briefly just open with just going through some of the shows that I've seen, and then I'm going to be more specific and talk about some of them. So I'm looking through the list here. I've got Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. I've got U2, the 360 tour. That was a great one at the Pasadena Rose Bowl. They had a big spaceship set up for that concert. Black Eyed Peas opened the show, and all in all, it was a great gig. Flogging Molly and the Dropkick Murphys. I want to give a shout out to Dave King, the lead singer of the Flogging Molly, who just recently had a brain hemorrhage in January. He was in a coma for 2 weeks. He's had several surgeries. Flogging Molly is this great American Irish Celtic rock band. And I'm happy to say that Dave has been released from the hospital. He's got a long road of recovery in front of him, and I wish him the best because there is nothing quite like a Flogging Molly show. I've got Macklemore and Ryan Lewis here, AFI, Jazz Fest, Tenacious D, Lady Gaga, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath again, Queens of the Stone Age, Jerry Lee Lewis at the Theater at the Ace Hotel. That was a great one. Theater at the Ace Hotel right here in Los Angeles, California. This was around Jerry's 80th birthday. And he did a 45-minute set. I've seen Jerry Lee Lewis several different times, but this one was kind of cool because during the show, I'm up in my seat and dancing and rocking because it's a rock and roll show with Jerry Lee Lewis. And behind me is this dude with his family, and this guy is 90 years old celebrating his 90th birthday. So I grab this dude, this old man, and I walk him out into the aisle, and we start dancing and swinging. I'm spinning this guy in the aisle, and like 7 or 8 other people get up out of their seats, and the ushers come down to us, and the usher says, "Hey, man, you can't be dancing during the concert." And I said, "What are you talking about? This is a Jerry Lee Lewis concert. I mean, it's a rock and roll concert. What do you mean we can't be dancing?" The guy said, "Hey, if you don't stop dancing, I'm going to kick you guys out." And I looked at him and I said, "Man, this is this guy's 90th birthday." And I said, "You want to kick us out for dancing at a Jerry Lee Lewis show? Kick us out." I mean, that's a great story. That's what they used to do back in the day. So that was a fun gig. Hank III, the grandson of Hank Williams, that was wonderful. Musical tribute to Dr. John. Robert Earl Keen at the Ryman Auditorium. I'm going to do a podcast with my buddy Colin. We did a trip out to Nashville to see Robert Earl Keen at the Ryman, and we also got to see him in a little joint called Robert's. So I'll do a separate podcast on that. I also did Portugal the Man with my buddy Colin, and we also did a road trip through the Blues Trail that began with Joe Bonamassa gig in Little Rock. We drove through Clarksdale, had fried green tomato and some catfish, saw the gravesite of Robert Johnson, and then headed into Memphis to do all the stuff about the King. And I'll share that again in another separate podcast. We got Dixie Chicks, we got the Black Crows, we got Katy Perry, Justin Timberlake. Hey, Justin Timberlake, this gig in 2013 for his 2020 Experience Tour, unbelievable. Not only was he a phenomenal performer, but I was like the only dude in the whole audience. This was all women. I took my wife to go see that gig, and we were just surrounded by all these ladies who were in the aisles dancing all night. ZZ Top, a show at the House of Blues, tiny little venue, about 800 or 900 people. Tom Petty with Bob Dylan, Stray Cats, Green Day, Eric Clapton's Crossroads Guitar Festival. You know, that one is at Soldier Field in Chicago. And so I never hesitate to hit the road and go see a great show wherever it may be. Elton John here. We got the Yoko Ono, her 80th birthday party. That was a whacked way out gig. You had Thurston Moore and Kim Gordon there, Iggy Pop, Lady Gaga, all celebrating the music of Yoko Ono. It was incredible. Dr. John, the Roadshow Revival, Reverend Horton Heat, the Blasters and the Super Suckers, Deep Purple, Steve Earle and the Dukes. I mean, if there's a gig out there, I am going to hunt it down and I'm going to go see it. So now I want to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the greatest gigs, you know, because there's great gigs, and I don't care what kind of size venue it's in, you know, bar, club, arena, stadium, it doesn't matter. I've seen some great gigs and I've seen some epic gigs. So I'm going to share with you briefly some of those ones that really stand out. So as you can see here, I'm wearing this Rammstein shirt. And this was the shirt that I bought when I went to the gig at Madison Square Garden in 2010. Now, I'm a huge Rammstein fan, and they hadn't played in the United States for 10 years. So on their web page, on their fan page, as I'm a fan member, they were saying they're coming to America their first time in 10 years. So as a fan club member, I got to be in this lottery to get tickets for the gig. So there's my ticket for Rammstein at Madison Square Garden in December of 2010. And what was really cool about this is it was my daughter's 16th birthday, and we flew to New York to go see that show. A band called Comb Christ opened up. They were way out, but Rammstein just, you know, unbelievable pyrotechnics, unbelievable show. And then, of course, they released just a handful of years ago that Madison Square Garden concert on DVD. So to be able to have an actual DVD of that show, that was a great show. Another real memorable show for me was in 1986, and it was called the Summertime Blues Festival. And it was John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, Etta James, Eddie Cleanhead Vincent, Albert King, and then Bo Diddley. So during the gig, it was a theater in the round, so the stage was rotating. And during Bo Diddley's set, he broke a guitar string. So when the stage rotated back around, I crawled up on the stage and I grabbed that broken guitar string of Bo Diddley, one of my treasured items as a rock and roll historian. At that gig, one of my idols, Walter Trout, so that's a picture of young John Williams and Walter Trout in 1986. He had just hooked up with John Mayall and the Blues Breakers. And of course, today, Walter Trout is renowned as one of the greatest of the greats that are out there. So I got this little book with all these ticket stubs and stuff. And if I look on this page, here's an interesting one that was Prince at the Nokia Theater, and this was in 2009. So Prince in 2009, he drops 3 CDs on one day, 3 completely different recordings. And to celebrate that, he does 3 shows in Los Angeles. He does the Conga Room, he does the Nokia, and he does the Staples Center, all on the same night. So we were able to get into the lottery, and my wife was able to score us tickets to see Prince at the Nokia, and it was just absolutely mind-boggling. He played every instrument, drums, bass, keyboards, and his guitar playing was just as good as anything I've ever seen live as far as a guitar player. And, for Prince, it was a full circle moment because the first time I saw Prince was in 1981. Mick Jagger had discovered Prince at a club in New York, this unknown kid, and he was blown away. So when the Stones were touring, they added Prince to their tour in 81. So it was Jay Giles Band, George Thorogood, Rolling Stones, and Prince. So we're at the Coliseum. Prince opens the show. Nobody ever heard of this cat. He comes out and he's wearing like garter belts and a bustier. And, he comes out and just starts this unbelievable guitar solo. I mean, just way out. And the audience just goes nuts and boos. They're booing, they're throwing cups, they're throwing shoes. Some cat throws a bottle up at Prince. Bill Graham, the legendary promoter, comes out and says, "What is going on here? I've never seen anybody treat an artist like this in all my years of promoting. This is ridiculous. Some guy threw a bottle." And this guy's raising his hands like, "Yeah, it was me. And Bill Graham says, "Hey, if you think you can do a better job, come on up." And the idiot comes up to the stage. The bouncers pull him up. 2 or 3 of those dudes just start beating the hell out of this guy. They drag him off stage. Bill Graham begs the audience to bring Prince back out. We kept booing. Everybody's booing. He never came back out. Little did anybody know, Mick Jagger knew, but little did anybody know that this guy was going to be the dude that he ended up being. So that was a great one, Prince at the Nokia Theater. Hey, a couple other really good, cool gigs. So Billy Preston was playing the legendary Roxy Theater in Los Angeles in 1988. So I wanted to go see Billy Preston. And it was a very cool gig because at the show, I met my absolute idol, Little Richard. So before the show, Little Richard comes in with his entourage. I take a few pictures. His big guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, you can't take any pictures of Little Richard." And me and my brother walk up to Little Richard and said, "Hey, Little Richard, as far as we're concerned, you're the king of rock and roll." And man, his eyes lit up and he said, "Oh, I am the king. I've been trying to tell everybody." So, he goes on for about a minute or so of, yeah, he's the king of rock and roll and how, he loved Elvis. And he said, "I loved Elvis, but I'm the king." And he said, "It took Elvis for everybody to listen to my music, but, he was just so animated and he was generous enough to sign an autograph to me, to John. God loves you, Little Richard, my Roxy ticket stub." Just one of those great gigs. Billy Preston, of course, shredded it that night. So I crawled up on stage after he was done and I took his shoes because he had kicked him off during the shoes. I brought him back to my table. The guy comes out and says, "Hey, man, you can't be taking Billy Preston's shoes." And I said, "Man, I got to have something. What can I have?" And I got the set list that he had on his piano for the Billy Preston gig. That was a heck of a night. Again, I got a bunch of ticket stubs here just from, the gigs that I've went to over the years. Jerry Lee Lewis at the Palace Theater. Oh, God, man, he wrecked it that night. That was in 1988. He was clean and sober because they were just wrapping up production for the Great Balls of Fire movie. And it was just unbelievable. After the gig, the people were going nuts. The Palace is a really small joint, maybe 800 people. I jumped on stage. He's wiping himself down with the towel. I say, "Hey, Jerry, give me that towel. Give me that towel." And he tosses it to me. He says, "You got it, boy." Or son, he called me. "You got it, son." And I jump off stage and cats are trying to rip it from me. Unfortunately, I had a house fire a bunch of years back, and that towel is no longer with me. But if you don't ask, you don't get. Mick Taylor with John McVie and Colin Allen and John Mayall and the Blues Breakers. That was a phenomenal gig. Moody Blues. The Moody Blues gig was really trippy in 1980 because opening for the Moody Blues was Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble. Now, we had never heard of this cat, Stevie Ray Vaughan, or the band Double Trouble. We thought it was two different opening bands, so we were kind of bummed that we had to sit through two people. And Stevie Ray Vaughan came out with his band. He went into Voodoo Child and did all this stuff. And oh my good Lord, it was just incredible. The Moody Blues were fantastic that night. But Stevie Ray Vaughan, saw him a couple more times prior to his passing over the years. And man, were those always great shows. I got a backstage pass here, VIP for the Rolling Stones. Taylor Swift tribute gig was a really fun gig. And for me, the band of the night was Post Malone, Ozzy Osbourne, and Travis Scott. They ripped it up. The Infectious Grooves, another great gig. Oh, here was a great one. So in 2002, a gig called the Inland Invasion. The Inland Invasion. So it was like a punk rock, just mega. Sex Pistols reunion. You had Pennywise, X, the Buzzcocks, Social Distortion, The Offspring, Bad Religion, The Damned. Phenomenal. An X gig, Social Distortion. I've probably seen Social Distortion more than any other band. Muse in Phoenix. We went to that gig. Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. Santana at House of Blues in Las Vegas. Oh, here's one of my favorite shows ever. So my hero and the dude that my favorite singer is Eric Burdon from the Animals. So they were doing a gig at the Golden Bear in Huntington Beach. Robbie Krieger on guitar, Brian Auger on keyboards, Eric Burdon doing the vocals. So they go through the litany of all the songs or whatever. Well, me and a buddy, I had read Eric Burdon's book, so I knew that he was a weed smoker. So my buddy who facilitated that back in the day, we bring a bag of weed, we knock, on the door, the bouncer comes outside, says it's a real small backstage area. And we said, hey, we know, Eric enjoys, weed. We want to hook him up, but, we'd like to give it to him personally. So the guy comes back a minute later. We go back there. I smoke a reefer with my idol, Eric Burdon. He was very thankful to get that bag of weed. Kiss. Oh, the two, Pink Floyd at the Rose Bowl and Jack Murphy Stadium. So I saw Pink Floyd a few times, but in '94 for the support of the Pulse album, saw him at Jack Murphy Stadium, and then 3 days later at the Rose Bowl. Absolute gig of gigs. I'll just leave it at that. Wonderful, wonderful gig. And of course, there's Brian Auger, Robbie Krieger, and Eric Burdon's autographs. Madonna at the Sports Arena in 1990. Oh my gosh. My wife was a big Madonna fan. I scored us tickets. We were right off the stage. And man, we show up in the parking lot and there's hundreds of girls dressed like Madonna. This is 1990 when she was on the top of her game. And it was one of the most extraordinary concerts I've ever seen. I went in with expectations that it was going to be good, but it was great. There were like 7 or 8 different stage setups during the show, and she was in complete command that night and blew our minds. Robert Plant, 10 years after the great Alvin Lee. I got to see my idol, Ray Charles, a couple times at a real small joint in Santa Ana called the Crazy Horse Saloon. How small? Like maybe 150 people. And I had got there early the day tickets went on sale, because back in the day you had to get there early to get your tickets. And I got the seat right next to his piano. So his handlers are bringing Ray out for the gig, and some lady jumps up and gives Ray a hug. And as he's walking towards the piano, I stood up and I put my hand in his hand and whispered in his ear. I said, "Brother Ray, you don't know what you do to me." And he said, "Thank you. Thank you." And then he sat down and he kicked my ass all night long. He had 3 background singers. The Raelettes probably had a quintet or maybe 7-piece band playing. Phenomenal. There's the Rolling Stones, Jay Guile, and Prince. Wings Over America, Paul McCartney and Wings, 1976. That was an unbelievable show. They did a live album after that. One thing that was cool about 76 was Paul McCartney was the master of his craft. He's only 6 years removed from the Beatles. And since all of the Beatles were still alive, there was all this scuttlebutt and this, weird, crazy talk on the radio that somehow this might be the city, LA at the Forum, where Paul McCartney and the band is going to get back together. Wishful thinking. Bob Seger, I worked backstage at that gig in San Diego. There's another Rammstein, my other Rammstein ticket from Madison Square Garden. I got too many to do, so I'm going to have to do another segment on this about the wonders of live music, because I'll tell you what, man, if you go to see a live show just in the last few months, I did the great Orianthi, unbelievable guitar player, songwriter, and singer. I saw John Spencer, Blues Explosion with Cedric Bernstein and the great Samantha Fish just last month. A couple of weeks ago, I saw Dream Theater in Los Angeles. This Saturday, I'm going to a gig with my cousin, a band called King's X, which is going to throw it down great at the legendary Coach House. And then in 2 weeks, I'm going with Lisa to see the old 97s in Pioneer Town. So go to shows, because whatever has you down, whatever is breaking your will, there is nothing like an escape for 2 or 3 minutes, or 2 or 3 hours into a venue to hear some live music. So that's all I got today. I know I went long, but when I'm talking about music, I can't help myself. I got to talk. So anyways, make sure that if you like what you saw or heard today, please like it. I would love for you to comment, share with me some of the concerts that you've gone to that you thought were just over the top. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the page at some point. And then always make sure you are kind to yourself. Be a good neighbor. Do something nice for a stranger without seeking reward. Don't let the darkness take away your light. Don't let the haters get you down. And as always, peace, love, and music. That's it.